Coming up, with the Orlando Magic season hanging on by a thread, so is the employment of Jamahl Mosley with the team. I've already made a video with 5 possible candidates to replace him this offseason. In this video, I'm going to add a few more names to that pile, as well as some of the big name assistant coaches the Magic could look at if they were to choose that route. But first, this is the Orlando Magic Nation, your source for all things Orlando Magic on YouTube. For Magic fans, by a Magic fan. I'm Edwin Valentine, and I want to thank you very much for clicking on this video and spending a little bit of time talking Magic with me. Got to do the normal YouTube things like share, drop a comment below on who you want the Magic to hire. And if you want to do so, hit that subscribe so you don't miss out on any content that I produce. If you're listening to this only on audio form, make sure to rate the show 5 stars and share it with somebody. It really helps the show reach more people. All right, let's get started. Now, with the season basically on the brink in this 8-9 matchup against Charlotte, and Charlotte has been playing incredible basketball since the new year. I don't think a lot of people have a lot of confidence that the Magic are going to be able to prevail. They will be at home, so hopefully that will be a boost for them morale-wise, since that just hasn't really seemed to be at an all-time level right now. The morale with the team, they just seem so disjointed, unfortunately, right now, and it doesn't seem like they're playing for each other. They don't have the energy. Doesn't seem that if they wanted to try to save Mosley's job, it doesn't seem that they're really right now working towards that. Now, I really don't think anything's going to really be able to save Mosley's job at this point. The team has underperformed this year due to expectations, due to injuries. Some of it is not his fault. Obviously, the injuries are just one of those bad luck things, but he's a coach. He knew what he was getting himself into. If he knew that if either the talent didn't develop a certain way, or if he didn't develop as a head coach by building a better team of coaches and player development guys to come in to make the players play better, that he was just going to be on the chopping block. And that's just kind of what's happening right now. So again, is his offensive scheme something that is that inspires people? No, it's definitely not the case. But his player development style, his communication, his being able to get the guys to buy in at such a young age and play such tough defense are his calling card, and he will get another job in the NBA, especially for an up and coming team or a team that's tanking or that has tanked and needs to build a new culture. He's going to be the first name on that team's list. So don't cry for Mosley. He's definitely going to get another job. It's just now it seems that especially when you look at some of the candidates, a lot of guys have 5-year chunks in their resumes for head coaching gigs, and we're at the 5th year and we haven't progressed enough as a team. So I really doubt he'll get that 6th year with the Orlando Magic. But again, he's going to get a gig somewhere along the line. So there's really no reason to worry about Mosley. He'll be just fine. Now, looking at different candidates, like I mentioned, I already did a video that had some of the bigger name candidates that's online have been connected to the Orlando Magic. Now there are a few more after the loss to Philadelphia. Now a few more names have started to pop up a little bit, and then I'm gonna add. I think it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7-ish assistant coaches or associate head coaches that are big names, or at least well thought of in the basketball world. And if the Magic were to choose to go with a brand new head coach, or a head coach who hasn't, or a coach that hasn't been a head coach before, to kind of continue to develop with this young team, then these names will likely be in the mix for the Orlando Magic job. So if we go through the first guy, I'd say so. This guy is the associate coach with the San Antonio Spurs. His name is Sean Sweeney. Now he's more of a defensive-minded coach. Now the team we know has slipped a bit defensively, and I think if there were one thing that we can really focus on would be a more offensive coach, but we do need to get our defense back in line. The defense that we were really leaning on for so many years, that just went away this year. The offense was better than what it had been and has been for over a decade, but now the defense slipped to such a level that all those gains we got on offense really didn't amount to much because we gave it away on the defensive end. So this guy, as we've seen, he's been with Dallas, he's been with Detroit, he's been with Milwaukee. So he's played or he's coached with Giannis, he's coached with Luca. So he's yeah, I don't know if we want to bring in a Dallas guy immediately after Mosley, who came to us through Dallas, but he's had 1 year as the associate head coach for the San Antonio Spurs, who are a young team who out of nowhere just basically were able to improve their defense to such a level that they were able to skyrocket in the Western Conference. They were able to move up the standings to all the way to second from being not even a play-in team last year. So that could be one way the Magic were to, if they were looking for a head coach that can kind of help them skyrocket, that would be Sean Sweeney. The next guy I'm going to look at is Micah Nori. I always forget if it's Mika or Micah, but we saw him be a head coach in the playoffs recently when when Chris Finch, the head coach, got injured in the playoffs. So Nori was the one that was in the front and was standing and being the one to orchestrate the entire team. So he has a little bit of head coaching experience in the playoffs. Obviously, the head coach was there still back, doing as much as he could with the messed up knee. But with Micah Nori, it's also he's another defensive coach. So from everything I've read, he is that unifier on that team. And again, that team had a lot of size. They have Rudy Gobert, who's going to go down as one of the best defensive centers ever in the history of the NBA. So as much as he's not liked around in the NBA, he still is a guy that warrants different accolades. So they've had Gobert. He's had different buy-in at different periods of time. They had Nikhil Alexander Walker on that team. So they've had a lot of guys really sink in on the defensive end, and that's why they've been able to make it to back-to-back conference finals. So again, this is another name that if the Magic were to look a little bit more defensive, on the defensive end, at least as the head coach, then they can go through Mike Nori. Now, again, these guys aren't necessarily a part of being a head coach is really building your staff. So even if you're a defensive coach, or let's say you've been more defensive minded in your career, and that was who you were as a player, that doesn't mean that you're not going to bring in another top assistant who could be the offensive engine, let's say, or the offensive coordinator, if we're going to call it like that. That's something that the Magic just hadn't been able to do. And again, that's partially why Mosley in the end will likely be fired, is because he wasn't able to really bring in someone, or didn't allow them to bring that offensive firepower to the team. So that is just the way it is. So Micah Nori is that other guy. If we were going to look more offense, I think a good candidate here is Johnnie Bryant, basically from the Cleveland Cavaliers. So he's been with the Cleveland team the last 2 years. So he's with Atkinson in Cleveland. Now he's more of an offensive coach. That's again, I'm doing as much research on these guys. A lot of them are not big names, but that's what it's been talked about. He's been highly rated. He's been on a team has been very successful for the last 2 years. And before that, he was with the Knicks with Tom Thibodeau. We talked about Tom Thibodeau a few in my last video when talking about the different head coach options that the Magic could look at this offseason. So he was in Utah prior to that. So I think this would be a pretty good candidate. So I'm assuming that he, as you see, was the associate head coach under Tom Thibodeau. So Thibodeau's offenses have been pretty good over the course of his time in New York. They've gotten better in the last couple of years, but that's something that could be a feather in Johnny's camp. And again, he is with Cleveland, and Cleveland last year had had the perfect season, other than the playoffs, of course, but the regular season, everything went well for them, and their offense was stellar. And if he is that engine of the offense, then that's going to be somebody that we would love to have, because if we're going to continue to progress as a team offensively, and we could be the 13th ranked defense like we were this year if we were a top 5 offense. But if we're going to only be a top 16 offense, that's not going to allow us to win enough to really be able to make noise in the playoffs. So I think that is somebody that we look at here. Another offensive coach would be Dave Bliss from Oklahoma City. So a lot of these guys have been around for many, many, many years. So he hasn't been around for too long, but as you see, he's an assistant and a player development guy, so that we still need our guys to develop. They're still pretty young, right? Paolo's 23, Franz 24, AB 21. So there's going to be a lot of growth still to be made for the Magic. And if it's a guy that used to be a player development coach, that's not going to be his role anymore as the head coach, of course, but it still at least maybe can ensure that he knows what he wants in a player development coach. Now, hopefully we're able to keep God Shamgod if possible. Shamgod was in Dallas for many, many years. So hopefully he'll want to stay in Orlando for many, many years and continue to help players like AB, who has said that he was instrumental in helping him get better this year and make his mini leap that he did. So I would say that hopefully we're able to keep God God, whoever takes the role from Mosley next year. But with Dave Bliss, he's Oklahoma City, so he's worked with Shea Gildress Alexander. So that's the type of guy that like, you don't automatically become a better coach just because you coach great players, but you can see their work ethic. You can see how they prepare, and that again, you can then bring that to a team. And really, people got to start snatching people from Oklahoma City, because they're they've been lapping the league recently. Now, obviously, we'll see what the playoffs have to offer, but if we wanted somebody on offense, I think he would be a great candidate there as well. Now, if we're going to go to talk about stability, there we're going to go over to Miami and associate head coach Chris Quinn. Now, Chris Quinn, another guy that's more offensive minded, I would say. He's been with the Heat now. The Heat haven't really been the best offense. Obviously, they tried something new this year. They kind of incorporated the no no screens offense that Memphis was really trying to do last year. So at least they're showing that they're malleable and that they're willing to try new things. But he's much more of a player development, as you see earlier in his career. The same thing. Player development. He was able to develop players like a Duncan Robinson, who was undrafted. And that's why they talk about the Heat culture all the time, with players playing way better than what they were coming into the league or what they did in college. And a lot of that was because of Chris Quinn. So it would probably take a lot to pry him away from Miami if that was something that we wanted to do. But he's worked under Eric Spoelstra. Again, that's another one of those little feathers. Spoelstra is considered one of the better coaches in the NBA. So again, if you're sitting on the right hand of the main coach, and you're there in the front row and you're absorbing all of that knowledge from these guys, then that is obviously going to help you along the way. Now, another guy. Now these other guys are a bit, from what online says, they're a bit more glue guys or player coaches. Not necessarily player coaches in that they let the guys do whatever they want, of course, but these are guys that are trying to make connections with the players so that, again, they can get the buy-in that we need. So, Jared Dudley from Denver is where he is now. He's a really new coach, as you can see. He has only a couple years under his belt, but he's been in Dallas. Again, Dallas is involved, but he's been at Denver this year with Adelman, and Adelman is a new coach himself, so I'm sure he's leaning on his assistant coaches. And Jared Dudley, apparently, because of Jokic, they have to scheme defensively around someone who is not as the most fleet of foot, let's say, defensively. So he is that guy that's been working a lot on their defense. Now, they were injured a lot this year, so some of their defensive numbers probably weren't the best. But I think that this would be somebody that hopefully would be able to get buy-in from the players, because he was just a player just a few years ago, and he's yeah. Our team is still pretty young, so I think it would be a good thing still to have someone with a little more youth, just to really be able to resonate as much as possible with the players. Now, that would be something. So a defensive minded coach, he was pretty good on interviews, and he's a pretty jovial personality. So again, hopefully he'll be able to connect with the players to really get them to buy into the system. Now, if we're looking a bit more offensive minded, with the same concept of a guy who connects with the players and is able to get buy-in, and again, stealing from some of the good teams, Boston associate or assistant coach, still, I guess they don't use that term in Boston, Sam Cassell. Now, Sam Cassell is, if you look at a lot of these other guys, Sam Cassell is a bit older. He's already in his late 50s. So that's one thing. But I think for him to have been in a situation like Boston right now, that guys like, as we saw in the last game of the season, Baylor Shireman, and Luca Garza, and Hugo, and all these other players that, again, they were able to develop, and they were able to get them to act in a certain way, in a certain professionalism and detail oriented, to really have success. Then I think it would be always good to grab guys from these teams to be able to mimic some of that, and then hopefully bring that to the Magic. So Sam Cassell, I think, would be a another name, because he was a big time player. All these other guys really weren't, other than Jared Dudley as well. But Sam Cassell really is a guy who had big playoff moments, so he can also draw inspiration from that, and then again impart that onto the team, and maybe it would be helpful in that way. And now, if we're looking for some of the head coaches, so we're going to shift gears and go to head coaches. I'm starting with a guy who was just an assistant earlier this year, and then ended up becoming the head coach in New Orleans, James Borrego. Now, Jay Borrego, we know that he used to be an assistant coach with the Magic, as we see earlier on. He even was the interim head coach in the 14-15 season. Let's say we limped to the end of the season there, and that was that. But it moved on over to San Antonio, and then became the head coach at in Charlotte. So, as we see, didn't have the most success necessarily, but I think, again, he's a younger coach, but he's been so well thought of that he is someone that definitely will get a long look. From my understanding, or from what I've heard online, New Orleans is looking or waiting for what happens this week or next week, if the Magic make the playoffs, or in the week after, if they're able to extend their series with the Detroit Pistons. That they're waiting to see if Mosley is going to become available, and if Mosley is going to become available, then they're likely to pounce on Mosley, and then Borrego would be available to sign with someone else. But Borrego is a part of the, let's say, the candidacy list that they have in New Orleans, and he's already been in house. Now, that's not necessarily the best, I would say, that they have somebody in house. Like we saw last year when the Memphis Grizzlies fired their head coach, and the Nuggets fired their head coach, that then they just kept their interim guys on board. New Orleans isn't doing that, but New Orleans doesn't always do the most logical. So maybe they're going to lose out on this guy now, to kind of get a better understanding of who James Borrego is as a head coach. None of the numbers really are super great when he was with the Hornets, but if we look at the numbers offensively, the 2 out of the 4 years they were in the top 11, so that's good. So they go. He basically has 5 years. I'm not counting the Magic interim stint, but 5 years as a head coach. On offense, 11th, 28th, 23rd, 8th, and then 20th this past year. I'm counting it as a full year. It's 70 games out of 82 because they got rid of Willie Green so early in the year. On defense, 23rd, 25th, 16th, 22nd, and then 23rd. So obviously, we see that he's not having an impact necessarily on the defensive end. Now, again, some of that is just going to be the players he has as well, right? It's not like they were juggernauts in Charlotte for those years. The net rating in those years: 19th, 27th, 23rd, 16th, and 21st. So he's a name that's been attached with the Magic, but I don't think that's very inspirational, those numbers there. So I would say that that's somebody that I wouldn't necessarily be really fighting to grab as our next head coach. Now to move on to someone who has even less experience as a head coach, we go over to Steve Nash. That was a name that for me was a bit surprising that popped up in connection to the Magic. Steve Nash, as if he had this massive coaching career. As we can see here, he did 2 years. One of them was a shortened season due to COVID, and then he was gone within 7 games. And now it was a circus in Brooklyn for him. So I'm not going to really say like anything was his fault necessarily. Obviously, if we look at the numbers for his time there, offense first in the first year. Now again, he had KD and Kyrie, so he had good talent on the team, but 23rd on defense for a net of 19 in that first year, and then 22nd defense in that first year, net of 7 because they were the number 1 offense. And the second year, 10th on offense, 20th on defense, 15th in net rating. So again, that's a coach there that really is not the most inspiring. Obviously, he is a Hall of Fame player. So again, he could, just like Cassell, be able to kind of bring some experience, have his own experience to be able to bring it and impart it onto some of the other guys on the team, especially a lot of the young players. But I think really it would be that to me is a surprise that it would even pop up as a candidate. And he seems to be, obviously we never know guys that are on television, but he seems to be doing pretty well on television right now. And I don't know if this is something that he would want to do, having to deal with the pressure of being a head coach again. Now, I don't think he would have the chaos. There is no Kyrie Irving on this team. So who knows, but he does have an offensive mind as we see there. 2 years, 2 top 10 finishes on offense. So he would have to bring in probably a defensive coordinator, and that could be, let's say, Sean or anybody else that he could probably take out the Rolodex and bring in. So that is a person that is possible, but I really don't think that be somebody on there. Now to go to a very different level, from only 2 years of experience to a billion years of experience, I would say Doc Rivers. Now, Doc Rivers has just been released, or just decided not to be a coach anymore in Milwaukee. As we see, I shortened it here, but let's look all the way up to all his years. Another Orlando Magic coach. He got his start really with the Magic and was able to do well with the Heart and Hustle team. So that's one of the most beloved Magic teams ever. He was able to coach McGrady as well. So I think they had mild success with the team. But then when they got off to the 1-10 start on this last season, in the 03-04 season, they let him go there. Then he ended up going to Boston, winning a championship, Eastern Conference Finals as well, a couple conference finals, and another NBA. But I've shortened it to his time in LA, Philadelphia, and Milwaukee, just because he's been 20 something years basically as a head coach. Now, in the regular season, things have gone well. 50, what was it? He's in LA. He had a 631 winning percentage. In Philadelphia, a 653 winning percentage, and in Milwaukee didn't go as well, just because of injury due to Giannis. Now, that's really good, but he really didn't have the teams that went very, very far in the playoffs with the big collapse that the Clippers had against Houston in the before getting to the conference finals. Same thing with Philadelphia with Embiid and Ben Simmons. So he just hasn't had that playoff success as he did in the 2000s and early 2010s. So we're in mid 2020s at this point. So I listened to a podcast with him recently, and he basically was saying that he's done coaching, but for some of these guys, it's the juice. They can't turn it off. They're lifers with the NBA, and Doc Rivers would be one of those now. It'd be a big name. It'd be splashy if the Magic were to get somebody like Doc Rivers. But for me, it's not. That wouldn't be the best guy. Like, he seems to be pretty blunt with his players, which is good. I really think we should be having somebody that's going to hold the kids, basically the team, accountable. So that would be a good thing, I think. But just looking at some of the numbers especially in the last few years, obviously a lot of injuries in Milwaukee with Dame down and with Giannis going down. So I'm not just going to say that, a lot of these numbers aren't due to circumstance, but he's one of those guys that's always around talent, right? In LA, he had Chris Paul and Blake Griffin. In Philadelphia, again, Embiid, Ben Simmons, and I would say in Maxey as well, of course, and then in Milwaukee with Dame and Giannis. So that he's always been around talent. So the Magic have enough talent that him coming in would be, it wouldn't be a coup necessarily, but I don't think he really wants to do the grind anymore. He's a bit older, as we see. 64, but he got coaching. He was coaching pretty young, so he's younger than guys like Tom Thibodeau. But still, I think he sounds, at least in the podcast that I listened to, he sounded very much done, at least for a little bit. So I don't think he'd be a candidate for this year. But going through some of the numbers, or if we're looking just at his times with the Clippers, Milwaukee, and Philadelphia, on offense, first, eighth, fifth, eighth, ninth, second. That was with the Clippers. So all top 10 finishes on offense. But this time in Philadelphia, 13, 11, third. So even 13th was the lowest he's been so far in those years. And then 6th, 10th, and 24th on offense this year. So if we're looking for offense, he either brings the guys with him. Again, he builds a coach like him. He'd be able to build a really good assistant coaching group. So I think, and player development. So that would be the benefit of bringing in somebody like Doc Rivers, to be able to bring in a lot of talent as assistant coaches. So as we see in all those years, which is what, 7, 3, and 13 years, basically. Other than last year, his lowest output on offense was 13th. So again, it depends on what we want. Like I building a case for him, basically, by saying he would bring in all this talent on as assistant coaches, and as we see, there was a lot of success on offense. Now, if we go over to the defensive end, 9th, 16th, 5th, 12th, 19th, and 5th. That was his time on the Clippers. In Philadelphia, 2nd, 12th, 8th. And then with Milwaukee, 19th, 12th, and 26th. So, of course, I would say last year was just an aberration. But if you look at that, they're all at least 19th, which is not anywhere near where we'd want to be on the defensive end. But again, if we are first on offense, we don't want to be 19th on defense still, because that's not how you're going to win a championship. But that's, again, he hopefully would be able to get a defensive minded assistant head coach that hopefully be able to scheme around the strengths of our players, and instead of just continuing to do the same thing over and over and over. And I think that's what frustrated many fans, and I'm sure the players as well. Like, they continue switching when it's not been beneficial to the players. So I think after a while, you start to lose faith in the coaching if you continue to kind of do the same thing and it's not working. So Doc Rivers is a guy that could be in the running, but again, listening to him in the podcast I listened to, he did not sound like he wanted to coach. And just to be consistent, I'm gonna add his net ratings: 2nd, 5th, 4th, 17th, 13th, 2nd, 5th, 9th, 3rd, 11th, 25th. So again, nothing lower than 117th that was there. That was a bad year on defense in the Clippers, but other than that, top 10s all the way across. So again, he has a pedigree. He has been a coach this whole entire time for a reason. It just hasn't had the most playoff success in the last 15 years or so. So I think that would be the knock on him. Now, the last candidate that I'm putting on here just because everyone was talking about it and sending me the messages and saying, "Oh, like we should have this guy as our head coach," and it's Stan Van Gundy. Right, so it's a blast from the past for the Magic. Obviously, we've seen a few guys, Doc Rivers and Borrego, that used to be part of the Magic organization. Stan Van is the last guy really to take us to the promised land, which was the NBA Finals. No championship, but an NBA Finals. So we can hope that he would want to come back. And he was so revolutionary with his offense the first time around that maybe he'd be able to find a market inefficiency somehow and build a staff that could really help our guys really take advantage of that. The last time he was part of the three revolution, really, to be honest, he was the one that had big guys like Turkoglu shooting threes, Rashard Lewis shooting threes. Dwight Howard wasn't shooting threes yet, so it was more of a 4-man out and one center. We would have a 5-man out obviously now, unless we upgrade or do something different with our center moving forward. So if we look at Stan, we know what he did in Orlando: 52 wins, 59 wins, 59 wins, 52 wins, and 37 wins in that last year with the Magic. So winning record in each one, 50 won over 50 games 4 times. So that it's just success begot success. Now, in the end, he didn't, like, obviously we made it to the finals and he made it to another Eastern Conference Finals. But after that, it was very disappointing. And at that, the Magic again had expectations. So the Magic organization hasn't really had expectations all that often. So when they do, and the coach doesn't perform, then obviously their leash is a lot shorter, and that's why Stan Van was gone after that. But then he had time in Detroit and New Orleans, and I think my concern with Stan Van Gundy, again, unless he's finding, as an announcer, he's finding a way to see another inefficiency. I don't know if his last 2 stints in the NBA really are adding confidence to me when it in terms of him being a coach that could really move us forward. With Detroit, 32 wins, 44 wins, 37 wins, 39 wins. So he only broke 500 just once in that time, and then he was at New Orleans, and he also again didn't break 500 there. So right now the Magic have at least broken 500 in the last few years. So we need somebody to bring us over. So if you're telling me that we can get the Stan Van Gundy from 07-08, that's going to immediately bring us over 50 wins, then bring it on, baby. Let's do it. And if that's what it is, then that's what it is. Now, if we look at the numbers for Stan Van Gundy, he took over an offense that was 19th year before he got there and brought it up to 4th. So instant improvement. So 4th on offense, 9th, 4th, 10th, 15th with the Magic. With Detroit, 15th, 15th, 23rd, 19th. So again, that's where I'm a little more worried that that's something that didn't transfer over to Detroit, and 11th in the 1 year in New Orleans. On defense, 10th, 1st, 4th, 4th, 13th. He obviously had a guy named Dwight Howard. You might have heard of him. So I don't know if that's something well, obviously the defense was predicated on his defense, and that just obviously is going to bring the defensive numbers in a positive light. When he was in Detroit, 20th, 13th, 8th, 10th. So the last 2 years, not too bad. And 23rd in the 1 year that he was in New Orleans, for nets of 6th, 4th, 1st, 6th, and 15th with the Magic. Detroit 19th, 14th, 21st, 19th, and then 18th with New Orleans. So I don't know. For me, that's a name that we're always going to revere because he's one of the most successful coaches, if not, well, he one of two guys to bring us to the NBA Finals. So he's a name that we all are fond of, but I don't know if he would be uh, someone that would be able to take this young block of clay basically and bring us to the next level. So I think that's my concern here. Now, if I was going to look at all these coaches here, I would say for me, if I had to choose any one of these head coaches of the four that are there, I would say Stan Van Gundy, just because he's, I would say, best option of the three, just because I don't think Doc Rivers' heart is into it. If I thought that Doc Rivers was going to be all in and ready to go, then Doc Rivers would be my choice from this group. From the assistants, I'd say Sean Sweeney for me is the one that jumps out. So for me, it would either be John Sweeney, Johnnie Bryant, or Sam Cassell. Those would probably be the three from the assistant coaches that I'd love to hear their names a part of the search and eventually be the head coach. So for me, those are the additional candidates that hopefully the Magic are going to start looking at. They are a team right now that is a bit kind of just in the woods right now, or that they're just not a team that's being very cohesive. They need right now, I feel, a real boost of energy. So a whole new scheme, a whole new offense, a whole new voice that it could really like take them from the pups that they were to now bring them to a point where they're going to be able to really start finding success in the playoffs to really do a what I think we all think they're capable of bringing a championship or at least having many battles in the playoffs, because not every rebuild or every group is going to win a championship. That's not something that is just the way it is, right? Some great players don't win championships, but we want them to be able to compete in the playoffs, and we want them to be guys that are going to be going deep into May and June and just bringing that energy and that spirit to the game that we all love and they love, and we want more from this team than what has happened in the last 2 years, and some of that is luck. So hopefully new juju they can get from a new coach, and hopefully that would allow them to again have a successful season next year and live on and maybe accomplish some of the goals they had for this year, or really start reaching some of those lofty goals that we all had on the team this year. Maybe next year, unfortunately, which we say a lot with the Magic, but maybe it'll actually happen this time. So again, do the normal YouTube things, like, share, drop that comment below on who you would want from this selection of coaches moving forward. And if you want to do so, hit that subscribe so you don't miss out on any content that I produce. If you're an audio only podcast listener, make sure to rate the show 5 stars and share it with somebody. It really helps the show grow. So I want to thank you very much for clicking on this video and spending a little bit of time talking Magic with me. I hope you're having a great day.